Why do we secretly desire what we publicly condemn? Why does sex, something so natural, create so much fear? What if your sexual fantasies were not perversions, but messages from your soul? Carl Jung didn't see sex the way you've been taught. He didn't view it as just biology or sin or even love. To Jung, sex was a symbol, a gateway to the unconscious, a mirror of our inner fragmentation, and sometimes a destructive force sent by the shadow itself. Most people live their lives trapped between two forces, a socially acceptable identity and a hidden sexual underworld they're terrified to face. Jung said this is why we suffer, this is why marriages collapse, why obsession thrives, why the normal become addicts. Today we entered Jung's labyrinth of erotic symbolism, hidden projections, sacred unions, and dangerous repression. And we begin with his most daring idea, that sexual energy is not about sex. In modern psychology, libido has become synonymous with sexual urge, but Jung shattered this idea early on. While his mentor Freud saw libido as purely sexual, Jung expanded the definition to something cosmic. Libido, Jung wrote, is not just sexuality, it is life energy itself. It is the force that drives all creation, art, ambition, mad love, destruction, and yes, sex. Sexual energy is just one expression of this deeper psychic vitality. So when someone feels a sexual urge, Jung would ask, is it really lust? Or is it a yearning for transformation, for connection, for something lost? The body wants release, the soul wants union. Part 2. Sex and the Shadow. Let's get darker. What if your secret desires, the ones you never speak about, aren't random? Jung believed they emerge from the shadow, the part of your psyche where you bury everything you fear, deny, or hate about yourself. This includes your sexual taboos. A man who obsessively judges others for being immoral may be hiding his own repressed perversions. A woman ashamed of her desires may project her guilt onto others. The shadow, Jung said, is 90% pure gold, which means even your darkest fantasies carry psychological treasure if you're brave enough to confront them. If not, the shadow leaks. It sabotages relationships. It creates compulsions. It can even lead to madness. Unacknowledged sexual shame becomes a parasite. Part 3. Anima, Animus, and Sexual Illusions. Why do we fall for people we don't even know? According to Jung, it's not love, it's projection. The Anima, feminine soul image, and Animus, masculine soul image, live in all of us. And when you meet someone who matches your unconscious inner image, fireworks go off. But it's not about them, it's about you. You're falling in love with your own soul, reflected in someone else. What we find in others, Jung said, is what we find in ourselves. This is why relationships that begin with overwhelming infatuation often end in collapse, because when the projection fades, reality appears. Only then can real intimacy begin. Part 4. Jungs Own Shadow. Love, Lust, and Tony Wolff. Let's talk about Jung himself. He was married to Emma Jung, a powerful partner, but he also had a long, openly emotional affair with his student and collaborator Tony Wolff. To modern eyes, this looks unethical, even scandalous, but to Jung it was alchemical. Emma represented stability and tradition. Tony was his anima, his muse, his mythic other. Jung believed both women symbolized necessary aspects of his own psyche. He didn't justify his behavior. He lived the inner contradiction. This was his famous teaching. Hold the tension of opposites. Not to choose between spirit and body, but to suffer both until something new is born. Part 5. Sexual Symbolism in Dreams. Dreams are the language of the unconscious, and sex in dreams almost never means sex. Dream of a serpent? That's libido, transformative energy. Dream of a cave? That's the womb, the mystery. Dream of water? You're entering emotional or psychic territory. Jung said most sexual dream images are symbols of inner union, fragmentation, or healing. Sometimes sexual dreams are warnings, sometimes they're invitations, but always they are speaking from the deeper self. Ignoring them? That's like ignoring letters from your soul. Part 6. Sacreds and Alchemy. Jung wasn't a moralist. He wasn't a hedonist either. He saw sexuality as sacred potential, a force capable of destruction, creation, transformation, illumination. He loved alchemy because it offered the perfect metaphor for sacred sex, conjuncture, the divine union of opposites. In true sex, not just physical, but emotional and spiritual, the ego dissolves. The illusion of separateness breaks. You meet the self through the other. Eros is a mighty daemon, Jung said. He binds and he destroys. So the question is, do you use sex to avoid yourself or to find yourself? Part 7. Porn and the Death of the Archetype. If Jung were alive today, porn would disturb him deeply. Not because it's erotic, but because it's soulless. In porn, the anima and animus are flattened. The mystery is stripped. The unconscious is exploited, not integrated. Jung would see porn addiction as a breakdown of psychic integration, a loop of fantasy and projection with no sacred core. He would say, you are not addicted to sex. You are addicted to a simulation of union because you have lost your connection to the symbolic. Modern sex culture, he'd argue, reflects a spiritual crisis. Part 8. The real danger. Repression doesn't purify the soul. It distorts it. The more you pretend your desires don't exist, the more they leak out in twisted forms. Violence, obsession, numbness, depression. What you resist not only persists, Jung warned, but grows stronger. Jung treated patients suffering not from excess, but from denial, the denial of their instinctual life. Healing, to Jung, was not about control. It was about integration. Part 9. Initiation through sexual awareness. So what is the goal? To stop pretending, to stop projecting, to stop repressing. Instead, to face your sexual nature with courage, insight, and responsibility. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming whole. To see sex not as animal instinct, nor as shameful urge, but as the language of the deeper self. When sex becomes conscious, it becomes powerful. When it is unconscious, it becomes destructive. Sex is not the enemy, it's a mirror. The question is, are you willing to look? One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, Jung wrote, but by making the darkness conscious. Sex is part of your darkness, part of your gold. What if your most shameful fantasy was actually a clue to your transformation? What if Eros is not your enemy, but your teacher? Carl Jung invites you into that question. Not to answer it, but to live it.